Hi, it looks like we are in. Hi everybody, welcome to today's session of UPSC Buffet by Gallant IAS. Today we will be discussing the science and technology portion from the PYQs ranging from 2014 to 2020. I have selectively chosen the PYQs based on their current relevance and to build a base upon certain concepts, and we can expect such questions in the future as well. So I'll show you how these sort of questions have been repeated from 2014 to 2020. A couple of questions have been repeated in a way that having just an idea about that in the previous year would have given you the right answer in the current year. So that has got high reward. So I'll show you the trend, how these questions are being asked, as well as how to approach them and the content to learn them. So that's about it. This is a gist of how a science and technology portion, basics of science and technology portion. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started. So the first one, in the context of recent advances in human reproductive technology, pro-nuclear transfer is used for. The keyword is pro-nuclear transfer. This has been asked in 2020. Let's try to solve this question. Fertilization of egg in vitro by the donor sperm. Okay, maybe pro-nuclear meaning transfer of nucleus or something of that sort, or transfer of nucleus or transferring something into nucleus, maybe something that sort. That's what I understand from the keyword. Then genetic modification of sperm producing cells. Okay, maybe development of stem cells into functional embryos. Developing stem cells into functional embryos and nucleus, that's not really that's not really something that we usually do actually, or it's not something that is connected to nucleus. So this something can be wrong. Prevention of mitochondrial diseases in offspring. Okay, one fact that we know, or one fact that we should be knowing about the basic cellular and reproductive science is that mitochondrial diseases or mitochondria is found in the nucleus, and mitochondrial diseases are the ones affecting the functioning of the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. So any disease that affects the mitochondria or in the offspring generally stems from transfer of that mitochondria from the mother. Okay, only the mother's mitochondria is inherited by the offspring. So that's the key term in that. So prevention of mitochondria disease seems very probable. And see, genetic modification of sperm. Okay, sperm doesn't contribute mitochondria. That's another thing. Also, fertilization of egg. Fertilization of egg also doesn't require any pro-nuclear transfer. Two basic facts we could be knowing. With logic we could eliminate this one, and two facts we should be knowing is that mitochondria is found in the nucleus. That's one thing, and the mitochondria is entirely inherited from the mother only. From that knowledge we can actually work on that, because in a nuclear transfer most likely something that is specifically found in the nucleus will be most affected, or will be the key focus of this particular technology. In that regard, mitochondria makes for a good choice for that, because here sperm and all, it doesn't really have any particular relevance in terms of nucleus. Same way fertilization of egg. Fertilization of egg is not just about nucleus, it has got multiple other factors. So something that is very specific to the nucleus is mitochondria, and having that knowledge really helps you and arrive at the answer, even without knowing what exactly this pro-nuclear transfer technology entirely is. So mitochondria is found only in the nucleus, and that way we can actually specifically connect it to the mitochondrial diseases and arrive at the answer. So this is how we can approach it. We need slight knowledge, because where this mitochondria is found is a required knowledge to solve this question, because some level of knowledge is required. That's how the question has been framed. But you can eliminate these two options even without knowledge, thinking that a nuclear transfer is not necessarily required in fertilization of eggs or something that sort. Especially in vitro fertilization, there is no pro-nuclear transfer required. Then genetic modification of sperm cells, that is also not something that is requiring a nuclear transfer. So that's a different story, and mitochondria can be connected to the nucleus. So that's how we can arrive at the answer. The funny part is UPSC have asked this question in 2020, and in 2021 UPSC have asked A very similar question. If you have gone through this PYQ and found, gathered some knowledge from this PYQ, you could have easily corrected this question, which is asked the very next year. The question is, passing on mitochondrial diseases from parent to child can be prevented by mitochondrial replacement therapy, either before or after in vitro fertilization. Okay, this is one thing. A child inherits mitochondrial diseases entirely from mother and not from father. If you have gone through what are the mitochondrial diseases or how they are transferred, you can easily arrive at this answer. This is why I repeatedly tell you that these options, not just the correct ones, the ones that are given by the UPSC are potential questions for the upcoming years. So you should be looking into the genetic modification of sperm producing cells, or what is it called, what is the technology, then fertilization of egg in vitro by donor sperm, that's not a particular thing, development of stem cells into functional embryo. So these sort of technology, whether such technology exists or how it works, these sort of things help. And if you have gone through this, you could have easily understand that mitochondrial replacement therapy can be performed before or after fertilization, because the child entirely inherits the mitochondria from the mother itself. The father's sperm doesn't really hold the mitochondria, or the mitochondria in the sperm is disintegrated even before the fertilization process. So that's not how it works. Since we are at it, let's not the mistake of not looking deeper into it. We'll just look into the basic mitochondrial diseases, how they work. Mitochondrial diseases or disorders are caused by problems in mitochondria, and mitochondria is the structures inside our cell that produce energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So when you can imagine, if energy is not supplied, organs will fail, and most organs, like if it's affecting the brain, seizures will occur, developmental delay can occur. If it affects muscles, weakness, fatigue. Heart, cardiomyopathy, weakness of the cardiac muscles. Eyes and ears, vision and hearing loss. This is fairly direct. If energy is not supplied because the mitochondria is dysfunctional, then the performance of these organs can be affected, or they can entirely be dysfunctional. So these are the basic mitochondrial diseases, and these are all caused by, these are genetic abnormalities. So in a way we can address these conditions during birth by mitochondrial replacement therapies. Okay, so that's the basic idea. And one very, very important thing to notice is that during fertilization, mother's egg contributes nucleus, cytoplasm and all mitochondria. This is what I was saying. This mitochondria of the child is entirely inherited from the mother. Father's mitochondria is not at all contributed to the child. So this is very important. So nucleus, cytoplasm, all mitochondria is contributed by the mother's egg, and father's sperm contributes only the nucleus. So that's the basic idea, and sperm mitochondria are destroyed after entry. This is one thing very important, because if you don't know, you might make this statement wrong, because you might think that a child inherits mitochondrial diseases entirely from mother and not from father. This may seem like an extreme statement, and without the factual knowledge you might think that this is a wrong statement. But this is not wrong, this is right only. This is very factual, and try to learn it. Okay, and try to learn which all things my mother's egg contributes: nucleus, cytoplasm, mitochondria. Father's egg contributes only the nucleus. So nucleus is contributed by both sperm as well as mother's egg, whereas cytoplasm and mitochondria are contributed by mother's egg only. See the pattern that I am saying. The question they are asked in 2020 about mitochondrial diseases, and same question has been asked in 2021 as mitochondrial diseases. It's as simple as that. Just a Google search will give you the correct answer for everything. That's how easy this is when you are going through the PYQs. So many a times if you come across a science and technology question in the examination, and you may think that, okay, where did this come from? I haven't heard about this in the current affairs. You could have just looked at PYQs from last 3 years, and you could have easily found some connection to that. So that's how it works. So I'm again showcasing how important PYQs are, especially in questions like this, because these questions tend to be very difficult, because you cannot entirely rely on logic, because this is an extreme statement, and things like this without basic knowledge can make you choose the wrong answer. So very important, go through the PYQs. UPSC can give very factual question, especially if they have asked something very factual in the something related to that in the previous year. So that's all about it. And moving on, blockchain technology. This was asked in 2020. And since then, in 2021, 2022, UPSC have repeatedly asked questions in the options referring to blockchain technology. So this is a question on blockchain technology, and then this is the question in 2022. There also the web, it's regarding Web 3.0, there can be blockchain based networks. Okay, in 2022. So question of blockchain asked in 2020, in 2022, as well as in 2022, two questions have been asked about NFTs also. Cryptography tokens exist on blockchain, meaning that UPSC, by asking the 2020 question, is expecting you to understand how this blockchain technology work, what are its applications, and it's imperative from your end to understand that. That's what UPSC have reiterated by asking these much of questions in the upcoming years. See, same technology being asked in the later years. That too, having the basic knowledge will easily get you the answer. Here also, you need to have certain knowledge. I think this was very much in current affairs, so you won't be missing many things because UPSC didn't go into the very much of details, and also elimination is possible in this particular question, which I tell you that. Assuming I don't know anything about blockchain, let me try to solve this question. It is a public ledger that everyone can inspect, but which no single user controls. Maybe. Okay, maybe. The structure and design of blockchain is such that all data in it are about cryptocurrency only. That's an extreme statement, as well as this doesn't seem right, because blockchain is a technology, cryptocurrency is an application. So blockchain technology can be used in other things, obviously. Cryptocurrency is one of many applications about relying on blockchain. So having blockchain can only be used for cryptocurrency is wrong only. So that's the basic idea, because blockchain is a greater technology. For example, it's similar to saying that using encryption technology is all about banking transactions. Is it so? We are using encryption technologies in our day-to-day transactions, like day-to-day WhatsApp transactions, WhatsApp messages, etc. So blockchain is an umbrella technology and cryptocurrency is one application of that. So this is wrong, and from that we can actually eliminate two statements and arrive at 1 and 3. Application that depends on basic features of blockchain can be developed without anybody's permission. From eliminating these two statements have left us with A and D, meaning that A is right. So that's a factual thing. So let's go into that. It is a public ledger that everyone can inspect, but which no single user controls. So this is a right statement, not from our knowledge, but from our elimination we have arrived at that. And since that statement is right, and test it against the third statement. Application that depend on basic features of blockchain can be developed without anybody's permission. And what this first statement says, no single user controls, meaning without knowing anything about blockchain, we were able to eliminate the second statement and got first statement as right, definitely. And testing the first statement with 3 gives us that 3 very much aligns with the first statement, and we can easily arrive at the answer. So in 2020, UPSC has given us not a very complicated way to solve this question, because with basic logic you can arrive at the answer. I hope you understood how this logic works. You eliminated a question based on available logic that blockchain technology will be having other applications, so that you don't require any specific knowledge for that matter. So we were able to arrive at 1 and 3, and that has given us 1 as right. Then we use the testing of statements against each other. First is right, so we have to test 3 against first. Testing 3 against first, meaning that both are coherent. There is no contradiction between them, meaning D also should be right. So that's how we arrive at the answer. Web 3.0, which I have already discussed, and the blockchain has been mentioned in 2022. Like 2 questions in 2022 were having blockchain in the option, and elimination or something based on that can actually give you the answer. So see, this is how UPSC gives the idea on upcoming science and technology portions. They are not asking something entirely random. Some 1 or 2 questions at most will be random, but other things will be having a connection to the previous year questions. So definitely go through the previous year questions, understand the basic technology or learn about that. Don't go behind and learn every technology that is available in the current affair. Go through the PYQs and note down the technologies that are being discussed so far up until 2025, and then refer these technologies and not anything that has been recently occurring from the current affair about these technologies only. Don't go beyond that, because that can be very exhaustive and you might that might not be that rewarding compared to polity or economy. So devote your time more for polity and economy. It's something that is more predictable and masterful. Like you use a smart work. List down the technologies that have been asked by UPSC in the last 5 years and learn about them. Make a note about them. Then, if at all you come across something from that list in current affair, note that. Don't go beyond that list. It's not worth it. Okay, please understand that. That way you can actually have a higher strike rate by correcting the answers and reducing your factual overload. That's it. Moving on. In 2020, this question has been asked in 2020. Genetic changes can be introduced in the cells that produce eggs or sperms of prospective parent. Okay. It doesn't seem impossible. It seems okay only. Then a person's genome can be edited before birth at the early embryonic stage. Yeah, this is where the gene therapy or the therapies like mitochondrial replacement therapy happens. So this is possible thing. Okay, because gene editing happens at an early embryonic stage. That's true only. So 2 is right, is what I feel. So this can be eliminated because that doesn't have 2. Human induced pluripotent stem cells can be injected into embryo of a pig. Pluripotent stem cells are the ones that can be developed into any organ. So that's the pluripotent stem cells. So they can be injected into embryo of a pig. Because stem cells have got a functioning that they can be developed into any form of organ. So that's the basic idea. And injecting them into an embryo of a pig, given the state of our development that is happening, this may be possible. And especially we are testing things on pigs because they are biologically a lot similar to us. Their cell structure, their reproduction is more or less similar to humans. So this seems like a possible thing, though there are 2 species involved. Interspecies transfer of stem cells is, I'm not 100% sure, but that seems possible only. Okay, so 2 and 3 are right, meaning you can eliminate this also. And looking at the first statement, genetic changes can be introduced in the cells that produce eggs or sperms of a prospective parent. Again, if we can do something like this is also possible. Introducing of genetic changes is also a possible thing to do. There is no particular reason to doubt that, given the development that's occurring in the biotechnology these days, gene editing these days. So this is also possible. So we can say that 1 is also possible. Like all 3 seem very possible, especially the 2 seems very possible. So we can choose D. There is a slight risk because there could be any interspecies issues, but we don't know for sure. We don't know anything about this. But by our logic, we can easily say that okay, this seems like a very possible thing to do, and we can take it as the right answer. So that's the right answer for that, and I'll show you the few things. Like again, the passing of mitochondrial disease. In that particular question, there are 2 parts. From parent to child can be prevented by mitochondrial replacement therapy either before or after in vitro fertilization. See this portion. This is in 2021, and look at this. Look at the 2021. Genetic changes can be introduced in cells that produce eggs or sperm of a prospective parent. This is exactly the same. This is exactly the same thing that is being asked in the first statement. Exactly 1 year after the question. So if you have looked about, like after attending this PYQ or going through the PYQ, if you have looked at this, whether this is possible, studied something about this in 2021, you could have made this right. Very true. So that's how it works. Like this single question has been derived from multiple questions that has been asked in the 2020. The 2021 question has connections to more than 2 questions in 2020. So that's how UPSC asked the question, so it's worth looking into it. Also try to learn about these. These genetic changes can be introduced in the cells that produce eggs or sperm. This is a right statement. Person's genome can be edited at an early embryonic stage. That is also true. Interspecies transfer of pluripotent stem cells is possible. Interspecies like human to pig is possible. So remember that. Again, one very important thing. I wonder why UPSC is not repeatedly asking this question, because a lot of projects has been undertaken by the government based on this public key infrastructure. It is a slightly difficult concept, but this was asked in 2020 and no questions have been asked based on that ever since. So I expect UPSC will be asking something about public key infrastructure PKI because the government has introduced e-passports which rely on this public key infrastructure technology. So this is worth looking into. No question have been asked so far, meaning that questions could be asked. Especially this has been becoming very important in terms of digitization, and especially with the recent introduction of e-passports. We'll look into that later. So public key infrastructure. The reason why I knew the answer while I was attending this examination was not because of logic, because I knew that this was something that is used in ATM cards. So I knew that this was not about food security, not about healthcare and education and telecommunication and transportation, and something that was very close to ATM cards were digital security infrastructure. So the way I solved this question was not based on logic, because I knew PKA was connected to ATM cards and all of BCD didn't have any connection to ATM cards. So that's how I eliminated these three and arrived at the answer. So this is slightly difficult if you haven't heard about public key infrastructure. So that's about it. But still you can understand that this is something about digital infrastructure and not something about a physical infrastructure. This is something very digital in terms, and everything here is not digital. Everything is physical infrastructure only, or durable infrastructure only. So this is the only digital infrastructure, and from the name of it also you can decipher that this is something digital in its work and not something physical. By that logic also you can arrive at the answer A. Let's look into how this PKA works. This is important. This is slightly complicated. You don't have to know everything about it. Just understand. I try to explain it in a very simple way. Try to understand. So PKA is a system that helps people and computers trust each other on internet. Okay, internet, there are a lot of transactions happening, and most of the transactions as in not money transactions, exchange of information, everything is happening. So it's like using a public road. So you want to send an information to somebody in a way that only the one who is sending it and the actual receiver should be able to read it. That's the basic idea. So if I am sending some information across the internet to somebody, I want to make sure that it reaches the right person and only the right person can read it. So what exactly I can do in a physical world? What I can do, I can put it in a lock. Okay, I can put it in a box and lock it, and I can send that particular key to the right person. By any other means, send that particular key to the other person and send its lock through a public route. So everybody will be able to see the box, or they will be able to see the box, but they are not able to understand what is exactly inside the box. So once it reaches the right person has the key which I have sent already, and that person can access this information and complete the transaction. This is a physical analogy of how this public key infrastructure works. And now this the physical box, the physical lock, the physical key I have told you, the digital version of all that comprises as the public key infrastructure. So that's the basic idea. So it's used for encrypting data, ensuring integrity, meaning that it is locked. No data can be altered inside that. Digital signatures. Of course, if we are locking something, it's tamper-proof. So that's how it works. And it's a framework that uses public and private keys. There are two keys used for that. Assuming this public key is the lock that you send. Everybody can see the public key. That is the lock. Everybody can see the lock, but not everybody has the key to open the lock. So that's the private key. And there is a digital certificate to verify the identity. So this is one way you can. Actually transfer information across the internet in an encrypted way. And the relevance I have told you is regarding e-passports. So in our Gallant test, we have asked that particular question. E-passports in India. E-passport contains RFID chip and the information is protected through PKIs. Okay. So this is relevant in terms of e-passports because this is gaining popularity, and this is some, it's a kind of a cutting edge thing that government has introduced. So it relies on public key infrastructure. The same way ATM cards also use this public key infrastructure. So this is the basic idea, and this question has been asked in our Gallant test. This is why I reiterate, rely on a test series that is very much in line with UPSC PYQ and connect it with the relevant things. Because we are not delving deep into a newer technology, something UPSC has never been asked. We are working on something that UPSC is potentially going to ask. This way we are kind of predicting and equipping you to be better prepared to attend the upcoming 26 or 27 prelims. So again I am reiterating, how this Gallant test is been framed, and the quality of the test is up to the mark when it comes to attending the UPSC examination. Maybe not, no, we cannot replicate the UPSC style, but we can equip you to attend the UPSC kind of question in the best way possible. So try taking a look at the Gallant test. So that's about it. Moving on, CAS 9. By now everybody will be knowing about CAS 9. This was asked in 2019. So this is very famous back. It wasn't very famous back then, but right now I think everybody is knowing about CRISPR Cas9. So we can easily, this is very easy answer. It's a molecular scissor used in targeted gene editing. But very few people have actually, an idea about how this CRISPR and Cas9 works. CRISPR is the guide and Cas9 is the scissor. And let's take some time into learning how this works, because I feel this is very important. A direct question on CRISPR or Cas9 won't be asked. That's not what I am expecting. But how a genetic engineering or gene editing is done is something UPSC is going to ask, because that tests your foundational knowledge. So CRISPR stands for clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Okay, that doesn't mean much, but the reason why I have told this, because interspaced short palindromic repeats, these are regarding genetic engineering. Okay, UPSC may be asking something like this. If they give something and this is associated with what, we will have absolutely no idea. So that's why I have told you this interspaced short palindromic repeats. This is regarding DNA. Okay, so that's why I have given the full form of CRISPR. So this is related to interspaced short palindromic repeats. Palindromic sequence, these are associated with DNA only. DNA and RNA, okay, or genetic gene editing in general. So CRISPR is like an address for DNA, okay. It tells where exactly in the DNA to go. DNA is like a large sequence with multiple repeating nitrogen bases and multiple bases. So there are a lot of points to be gone. So in order to guide our scissor or whatever thing we are using to cut the DNA or make changes to the DNA, we need a guide, just like an address. So the CRISPR is the one that is providing that. And what exactly is a CRISPR? CRISPR is a short RNA sequence that matches the target gene. It's like mix and matching. So we have a short RNA sequence that is that matches with the target gene. So that's what CRISPR is. And we compare this CRISPR, running the CRISPR across the DNA structure and find the exact match for that. And we get to the right destination. So CRISPR is like a DNA sequence where we can actually, it's like a lock, a jigsaw puzzle like, and when we run it across the DNA, in one point where the exact target is there, it matches and we can lock onto that. This is how CRISPR works. CRISPR is not a DNA, it's an RNA sequence, and the operation is done on DNA. Don't confuse that. Operation is done on DNA, but the CRISPR, the guide is an RNA. And Cas9. Cas9 is the protein that cuts DNA. You can imagine, cutting a DNA sequence, the kind of precision that we will be needing. So we are using something like a protein, like a molecular protein for that matter, and that's the Cas9. So Cas9 is the protein that cuts, once the destination is reached through the CRISPR, we cut that or edit that, make changes to that. So that's how it works. So Cas9 is a molecular scissor, it's a protein, and that's used for gene editing. So basically, without CRISPR, Cas9 doesn't know where to cut, and without Cas9, CRISPR is not that useful, because then we are getting into the space, India's space missions, programs, etc. This is a bedrock of science and tech. In the past years also, UPSC have repeatedly asked questions about this, and it's imperative on your end to understand the difference between PSLV, GSLV and various orbit, whether it be geostationary, geosynchronous or geosynchronous or polar orbit, and subdivisions of that. Don't worry, we are going to discuss everything about that in detail. Let's try to solve this question logically. PSLV stands for Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. Everybody knows that. Okay, launch the satellite useful for Earth resource monitoring, whereas GSLVs are designed mainly to launch communication satellite. Okay, maybe that seems possible. Satellites launched by PSLV appear to remain permanently fixed in the same position in the sky as viewed from a particular location of Earth. Okay, from the name itself, polar satellite meaning that they are going from pole to pole. So Earth is rotating from in this axis. Earth is rotating in this axis, and the polar satellite is going in this axis, meaning that they won't be fixed in the same position in the sky. When observing from the Earth, they may seem like moving, they may seem continuously moving because the Earth is not in the same axis as the PSLV. So this is a wrong statement. You don't need to have any logic, like any knowledge for that. PSLV meaning that polar satellite going from pole to pole. So going from pole to pole is like this. Earth is rotating like this. So observing from here, obviously this won't be stationary. So that is wrong. Then GSLV Mark III is a 4-staged launch vehicle with the first and third stages using solid rocket motors and the second and fourth stages using liquid rocket engines. This is slightly tricky because we don't know how. If you don't know how these engines work, this can be slightly tricky. Okay, but the choice has to be made between either A or D. Which among the following has got least burden of proof and the chances of being more accurate? So PSLVs launch satellite useful for Earth resource monitoring. Is it so? Because they covers the Earth surface and we can monitor the Earth resource. That is true. GSLVs used for communication satellites, and the purpose of communication satellites is to be reflecting the signals that are being sent to the atmosphere. So the communication across the globe is possible. This seems possible only. I don't find any difficulty connecting that. Here also this could be right, but the thing is it's very easy to mess up, because what if the first and third stages uses liquid, or what if the second and fourth stages uses solid? So this is slightly factual. This seems very logical if I imagine from from my understanding about what a PSLV and GSLV could be. So this seems more probable than this, because this has got a lot of room for error. So I choose 1/3 because of that. See, if you don't know anything factually, this is how this is the only way you can prioritize one thing over the other, because this has got a lot of moving parts, our error points. Whereas here, if you can imagine that something that moves from pole to pole can actually monitor Earth resources, whereas GSLVs can actually do the communication satellite thing. Again, that is possible. But here, what if it is the other way around, or the first and second stages, something that is being twisted and given, things can go wrong. So I choose 1/3. This is one logic we can apply, and many times it will be working in our favor, because we are not just randomly choosing it. We are logically applying our sense here, and we are logically applying our sense here, and thinking that this has got a lot of room for error. This could be, statistically speaking, this is having a higher chance of being right, and that's how I chose the answer. In this approach, I absolutely relied on no knowledge. The only knowledge or understanding I had was PSLV stands for Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, meaning it's from pole to pole. GSLVs are the opposite of that. That's the only thing I knew, and based on that single understanding, I was able to arrive at this answer. So it is possible for that to arrive at answers without knowing things, but I'm telling you, it's better to understand about these core concepts. Don't skip these core concepts. So that's why I've taken my effort into explaining how these things are different. From the name suggests, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicles are PSLVs. The other one is Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle. PSLVs are generally small. See, I'll show you what exactly is a polar orbit. See, this is a polar orbit. From pole to pole it will be going, and here what exactly is happening? It is along the axis of rotation of Earth. It doesn't necessarily fall along the equator. From the exact middle of the Earth, it can be inclined also. The one that is exactly above the equator is called geostationary orbit, and any inclination, any axis that has got an inclination based on equator is a geosynchronous orbit. So geostationary orbit is a subset of geosynchronous orbit. Geosynchronous orbit rotates based on the rotation of Earth in the same axis of rotation as Earth, whereas polar orbit is opposite. Like Earth is rotating in this direction, whereas polar orbit is rotating in this direction. They are going like this, whereas Earth is rotating like this. So this is geostationary and this is polar. So that's the basic idea. So obviously Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle will be having a polar orbit. and they are used in low Earth orbit, polar orbit, and sun synchronous orbit. See, due to the tilt of the axis and the sun's movement, there is a sun synchronous orbit, meaning that the PSLV launch vehicle that follows the orbit or follows the sun, meaning that when sun is passing by an area, then the polar satellite will be passing by that area. This way, what would be the advantage? More Earth observation is possible because the satellite is available in that particular area when the daylight or sun is there. So we have got greater visibility. So a sun synchronous orbit is very good in monitoring Earth resources. So that's something that you need to be knowing. And sun synchronous orbit is a subset of polar orbit. Payload capacity, you don't need to be knowing all that much, but this is important because PSLVs doesn't require that much of energy. They are not launched into very high orbits, so they don't require much stages. They only have a solid and liquid stage, and I'll tell you the difference between solid and liquid stage in a while. Then whereas GSLVs have solid, liquid, and cryogenic stages. Okay, there are 3 stages. Then cryogenic engine, obviously in PSLV it is not, and reliability is a workhorse rocket. Our Vikas engine is the PSLV rocket. It's called the workhorse of ISRO. So it's cheaper, the other one is costlier, and mainly, this is the important thing, Earth observation. So if a satellite is locked onto a particular place, then there is no observation happening. In order for the observation to happen, just like a camera, it has to move. If the camera is just fixed at a point, it won't be able to observe or monitor resources. It is focused on a single point. So just like a CCTV camera that moves along or it rotates, it captures a greater area and observation is possible. That's how this polar satellite works. And for a communication satellite, it needs to act like an antenna where it should be in an area where that is predictable. So we can send signals and receive that signal from that. So we have ground stations to send the signals and the other stations to receive it. So geostationary orbits are mostly used for communication missions. So that's the basic idea. GSLV was used in Chandrayaan mission also. So this is polar orbit and this is geostationary orbit. And I've told you geosynchronous orbit is a geostationary orbit that is following the exact equatorial path and along the axis of rotation of Earth is called a geostationary orbit. Whereas any inclination to this, anything that is having an inclination but follows the same axis of rotation as Earth is called a geosynchronous. From the name itself, we understand that geostationary orbit, since it follows the equator exactly, it appears like a stationary point on the atmosphere when observed from the Earth. Because if you are observing a satellite from the Earth, we both are moving in the same axis, same direction, same everything. So we can see that it's stationary only from observing from Earth. That's why this sort of orbit and satellites are called geostationary orbit. But in case of geosynchronous orbit, there is an inclination. So if Earth is moving like this, sometimes this can move like this. So there will be no stationary effect. So that's why this is geosynchronous and geostationary. And if this geosynchronous is perfectly parallel to the equatorial plane, then it becomes a geostationary. That's it. These are the major orbits. Okay, try to understand them. Low Earth orbit, where most of the Earth observations by satellites, space station like our ISS is located in the low Earth orbit. Then there is medium Earth orbit. Then there is geosynchronous orbit, like I said. And remember this thing, UPSC have asked about this, the height of the geosynchronous orbit in 2011, I guess. This is 35,786. This is the height in which a geosynchronous orbit is orbiting. So that's the basic idea. And a geosynchronous orbit, same time to orbit there, 24 hours. So that's the same thing. Then geostationary, which is exactly over the equator. And it is used in TV, telecom, weather monitoring, etc. Communication research satellite. Then the polar orbit. See, that's very low compared to geostationary or geosynchronous. That's why this polar orbit or polar satellite launch vehicles doesn't require much fuel, much stages, etc. So it's just 500 to 800 kilometers. Passes over north and south pole, mapping, remote sensing, and climate studies. Sun synchronous orbit is a subset of polar orbit. It passes the same area at same local time. Very important. Remember that. The one orbit that passes the same area at the same local time is called the sun synchronous orbit, which is a subset of polar orbit. Okay, agriculture, land use, weather satellites, and you understand why, because that area will be illuminated by the sun and greater observation is possible. Then highly elliptical orbit. Then Molniya orbit is one that is being used by communication satellites. Okay, it's a special type of high elliptical orbit, long visibility over polar regions. That's used by Russian communication satellite. Molniya orbit. Molniya orbit is a polar orbit. Okay, remember that. Moving on, and that's all about PSLV. Take a screenshot. Try to take a screenshot of this, compare it, and learn it. These are the major information that you need to be knowing about PSLVs and GSLVs. And again, try to take a screenshot. I'll remove all of these. And also about the various orbits, because you won't be learning everything, and this can get slightly tricky. Try to take a screenshot of this and this also, because this can get slightly tricky if you are learning it not in a comparative way. If you are learning it in comparison, it's very easy to understand and remember. So take a screenshot of this also. Moving on, this is a 2018 PYQ. Okay, remember, and let's go through the question and see how this question has been repeated in 2024. So light is affected by gravity. Universe is constantly expanding. Matter warps its surrounding space-time. Okay. Before solving this question, let's look into the question that has been asked later. See, in 2021, it is asked, which one of the following is a reason why astronomical distances are measured in light years? Okay. You can actually eliminate the options based on this question. A question that has been asked 3 years prior to that. Okay. Light is affected by gravity. This is right. Universe is constantly expanding. That is right. Matter warps its surrounding space-time. That is also right. And all three is the answer. So this is the answer of that particular question. And if you have gone through that PYQ, this is very easy to solve this 2021 one, because they seem very out of the box. Why are we using light years to measure distance? Again, I'm telling you, don't mistake light year for unit of time. It's a unit of distance. That's like how much of distance is traveled by light in 1 year. That's called light year. It's not a unit of time. It's a unit of distance. So distance among stellar bodies do not change. Okay, that's the first thing. Universe is constantly expanding, meaning that this is wrong. Gravity of stellar bodies do not change. Again, if you look at it, universe is constantly expanding, meaning that distance between the stellar bodies may change. They will be moving, and that can also change. Light always travels in a straight line. Light is affected by gravity, meaning that it will bend, and this is wrong. And the only statement that remains is D, and we can easily arrive at the answer. Look at it, how easy this is when you have looked at this particular PYQ. See, this is why I tell you it's very important to go through the PYQ. You can get very easy answers from right away from that, and it's that simple. But the issue with many a time, even when the students who are looking into the PYQ, is that they tend to forget, or they tend to not connect things. If you learn this light is affected by gravity without internalizing it, you will forget it. You need to be having an idea, that picturizing it, internalizing it, then any question that's remotely connected to this, you will be able to use your logic and eliminate it. This is how actually aspirants do the smart work. You can imagine, not everybody is from a science background. Many of them are from humanities background. And how are they solving these questions? Because they are going through the PYQ, they learn these things, they internalize it. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to know anything about general relativity, general theory of relativity. It's good if you can learn few things, but you don't have to spend your time on that. But from the PYQ itself, you can easily solve this question. See, if an aspirant who is not having a factual knowledge about this thing, this can go wrong easily. But if you have gone through this question, you won't be going this wrong. You won't be marking this question wrong. Again, very important for PYQ. Importance of PYQ reiterate. In 2017 question, see, I have always told you that UPSC has a keen interest in asking about questions regarding display technologies and general consumer electronics, especially smartphones. So question about OLEDs has been asked. UPSC is asking questions about smartphone because it's a thing that everybody uses every day, not just smartphones, laptops, etc. And UPSC is very keen on knowing that how curious are you about your daily gadgets, and this is why UPSC have asked this question. There is no real reason to ask this question other than that. And same way UPSC have asked about accelerometer. that same sensor that everybody's phone has, that allows us to change the orientation. When you tilt the phone, it the visual change from the portrait to landscape, that is facilitated by the accelerometer. The same way UPSC have asked about displays. So question is, organic light emitting diodes are used to create display technology in many devices. See, nowadays if you are going to purchase a mobile phone, you will be looking at whether it's having an LED OLED display or LCD display. And the advantage of OLED is that they have got much contrast, high contrast and deeper blacks and more power efficient, and they will be slightly expensive also. So we will be looking at as OLED display as a feature. So LCD displays are liquid crystal displays. OLED displays can be fabricated on flexible plastic substrate. See, this is the exact reason why the foldable phones recently released by the various manufacturers have got a OLED display, because it can be flexible. Roll-up displays are embedded in clothing, can be made using OLED. Yes, this is very much similar to this. Yes, transparent displays are possible using OLEDs. Yes, again this is also possible. So that's the advantage of OLED. UPSC can repeat something from this also. Remember, OLED displays are flexible, they can be transparent, and they can be roll-up. Flexible meaning they can be rolled up, they can be flexible plastic substrates. This is exactly used in the foldable smartphones, and maybe UPSC, since this foldables are gaining popularity, UPSC will be asking something about that also. So the kind of display that is used in foldables are OLED displays. That's what make them flexible and foldable. This is asked in 2017. In 2023, UPSC have asked about detection of car crash collision results in deployment of airbags almost instantly. The question is about accelerometer. Accelerometer is a sensor not just used in our phone, it's used across in other applications, but we daily use that thing, because if you change the orientation from portrait to landscape, the phone identifies the orientation based on the input from the accelerometer sensor inside your phone. And accelerometer is not just used in phones alone, it is used for all of these applications. Okay, so these all are right. The reason why UPSC is asking about accelerometer is not random. It's because it's a sensor that is used in your phones, and having that idea really helps. Same way our phones have got proximity sensor. When you bring your phone closer to ear during a call, the display cuts off, assuming that your ears are close to the display and to prevent accidental touches. So accelerometer, same way proximity sensor. Next question could be about a proximity sensor. That's again possibility. Or it could be about a gyroscope. That's also another sensor used in our phones to measure the axial rotation. So that's a basic idea. So learn about these things. Have a keen eye on all of these things. The basic sensors in smartphone, UPSC can be asking. This is very recent, 2023 UPSC have asked. So that's important. Again, what is the application of somatic cell nuclear transfer? This is asked in 2017. Okay, somatic cell nuclear transfer. The same nuclear transfer question that has been repeated in 2020. That has been asked in 2017 also. It is used in which of the applications? This was slightly simple, especially if you look at it now, it's very simple only. Somatic cell nuclear transfer, we know it's reproduction, it's regarding reproduction only, and it's used in animal cells. So reproductive cloning of animals, that's the answer. See, the question is somatic cell nuclear transfer, and the first question we have discussed is this one, pro-nuclear transfer. See, the pro-nuclear transfer, that was in 2020, and this somatic cell transfer is in 2017. See, that's how they are repeating. Every 3 year, 2 year, or the next year they will be repeating. And this is exactly similar to the question that has been asked in 2020. See, changes can be introduced in production of eggs and sperms. Same way the question has been repeated. So that's how we arrive at the answers very easily. So go through the PYQ, understand and note down the key technologies that are being asked. Also, in the technology question, if there is something mentioned in the options that you think are potential areas, because there is nothing in this one, but it's worth looking into what is biolarvicides. Okay, meaning they are killing the larvae. So, or in the other option, there are questions about public key infrastructure. No, not that. See, what is this? Development of stem cells into functional embryo, what is that called? Genetic modification of sperm producing cell, what is that called? So those things are important. Okay, so that's all about it. Go through the PYQs, note down the important ones, important technologies that are being discussed, one. Then try the technology that has been repeatedly asked, and also try to find the technologies that we daily use. For example, AI, GPTs. Questions about GPTs is very much possible. So large language models is an expected question. Also generative pre-trained transformers like the chat GPT, applications like ChatGPT. The basic is they are GPTs, generative pre-trained transformers, how they work, large language models, and about our phones, display technologies, etc. It's worth looking into, and UPSC can ask question. Also communication technology, 5G, 6G, etc. So that's all about it. I hope you gathered some information. Science and technology is very predictable. At most, one out of the box question will be coming, and you can easily leave that. But the rest of it are very predictable. So don't miss that opportunity. Take the best advantage of it. In many times, 10 to 12 questions are asked every year. So this can decide whether or not you will be clearing prelims or not. Because having an edge in science and technology will give you an instant advantage over everybody else. Because many aspirants won't be having that much of an edge. Also, irrespective of your background, you can work on your science and technology, because UPSC is not relying or not expecting you to have a very high level of technical understanding. You just have to have an understanding that everybody, an informed citizen of India, should be having. That's all about it. Thank you. Have a good day.